Good morning, everyone. Today, our group will present about the balancing global ethic and local culture with a focus on an ethical and CSR dilemma faced by IKEA. This topic is a part of our course cultural management subject. Our team is number 7 and we choose topic 6 for this assessment. My name is Natida and my team members are Donporn, Winyi, Jiaru and Adas. We hope this presentation help you understand the challenges IKEA face in Saudi Arabia and how global company can manage cultural difference in an ethical way. Thank you. And let's begin. For our agenda today, first we will introduce this case. Next, we will talk about the cross-cultural conflict and the ethical frameworks. Then we will share our recommendation and possible consequences. Finally, we will give a short conclusion and show our reference. This agenda will help you follow our presentation step by step. Next, please. Let me introduce our case. IKEA is a Swedish global brand with strong value and gender equality and exclusivity. But in 2012, to respect Sabu cultural norm, IKEA removed image for women from its local catalog. This decision created a ethical conflict with its global value, especially about the gender equality. It also made many stakeholders unhappy, like employees, activists, and investors. In this presentation, we will analyze this situation and share recommendations to help IKEA balance global ethics with local culture. Next, please. Let me explain what exactly happened. In 2012, IKEA published a special version for its catalog for Saudi Arabia. In that version, they removed all image for women. The result was to follow the local cultural and religious expectation, where showing women in picture can be seen as inappropriate. But this decision was strongly criticized because it went against IKEA global value about gender equality and diversity. The Swedish public international media and advocacy group call this discrimination is damage IKEA brand reputation and trust and forced IKEA to apologize publicly later. This situation is a good example for a conflict between respecting local culture and keep global ethical value. Next, please. Now I will talk about the conflict in this case more deeply. IKEA removed all image for women from its Saudi catalog in 2012 to comply with conservative and religious cultural rule in Saudi Arabia. However, this action created a big problem. It went against IKEA's own value about equality and human rights. In Sweden and other countries, people were very upset. They say IKEA was supporting gender discrimination and not protecting its own ethics. Some employees and investors were also worried that this should hurt the brand reputation and trust. So this is a conflict between adapting to local culture and keeping global value. IKEA tried to solve it by removing all women, but many people feel that was a weak answer. Maybe IKEA could have shown women in a more respectful way with modest clothes instead for removing them completely. That could have balanced local cultural respect with IKEA value about equality. This kind of problem is very common for global business. In this presentation, we will use ethical framework to explain why that conflict happened and suggest better solution for IKEA and other international company in the future. When we look at the conflict, uh, we can see that IKEA was trying to protect itself and follow local rules, but it forgets to protect its global brand value. That show a weakness in how they manage cost culture issue. If they had discussed more with local expert or women group, maybe they could have found a better solution. In cross-cultural management, it is important to listen to many stakeholder voice before make a decision. IKEA focus too much on avoiding cultural problem, but do not balance that with its promise for gender equality. That is why many people was disappointed. It is a lesson for global brands should not only respect culture, but also respect their own value in every country. Next, please.
Okay, thank you, Natida. Now that we have heard the background of what IKEA did in 2012, let's take a step further and explore why it's become an ethical failure. At first glance, removing women from the catalog might seem like cultural sensitivity, but actually it shows what we call superficial compliance, doing just enough to avoid conflict without thinking about deeper consequences. This is where Shine model becomes useful. He explained that company need to manage two things at once. First one, adapting externally to local expectation while internally protecting their core values. IKEA failed to do the second, is prioritize local fit but sacrifice its identity around equality and inclusion. Steer et al. Also remind us that many CSR failures happen when companies lack cultural intelligence. IKEA problem wasn't just what it did. It was how little ethical thinking went into that decision. They had the chance to create culturally respectful content that still align with their value. Instead, they took the shortcut. Next, please. Um, Let's now zoom out and look at this conflict through the lens of cross-cultural theory. First, Tompina model help us understand a core difference. IKEA home country Sweden follow universalism, which means ethical value like gender equality are expected to apply everywhere. So Saudi Arabia follow particularism, where ethics depend more on religions, family, and tradition. This mismatch creates ethical friction when global value meet local norms. Hall also helps explain why the method IKEA used didn't work. Sweden is a low context culture, its value clarity and visibility. Saudi Arabia is high context, where meaning is often implied through tradition. So instead of completely erasing women, IKEA could have shown them in culturally respectful ways, such as in family roles or with modest clothing, honoring local context without compromising value. Then we have Hofstede dimension. Sweden is a feminine culture that promotes equality and care. Saudi Arabia is more masculine, where hierarchy and tradition are more dominant. This cultural value shapes stakeholder reaction too. So Swedish citizens felt betrayed. NGO saw gender erasure. Employee lost moral. Investor fear ethical risk. So the real problem wasn't just culture shock, it was a failure to engage culture intelligently. Next, please. So lastly, let's talk about what IKEA could have done better and what we can learn from this case as future business leaders. IKEA did apologize, saying the choice to remove women conflict with their core values, but by that time, the brand has already lost stakeholder trust. According to Donaldson Ethical Framework, global companies must balance three elements: respect for human dignity, respect for local tradition, sensitivity to institutional context. IKEA focused mostly on tradition but neglected dignity and global stakeholder concern. What could have helped a more proactive ethics strategy to cultural audit before campaign release, cross-cultural ethic board to guide decision, or it can be dual track branding, same value but tailor visuals. These are not just theory, they are practical tools that help firms avoid ethical shortcuts. Instead of erasing identity, IKEA could have reframed representation, such as showing women in culturally appropriate roles. This is not only respectful but reinforce their global message of inclusivity. In short, cultural intelligence is not just knowing the differences, it's using those differences ethically and strategically. That's how we move from mistakes to meaningful innovation. So now I would like Jane to present next.
Following the conflict, IKEA was required to respond to criticism from both its home country and international shareholders. This free ethical framework can guide IKEA's decision-making by offering distinct perspectives to evaluate ethical actions and balance global values with local expectations. Consequences framework evaluates decisions based on the overall goodness that generate the best outcomes and for most people. However, they could have difficulties on predicting the outcome of this decision in real world. Just like in this case, the actions on removing women in the catalog was expected to fit into the local Muslim culture, generates the best outcomes in that market, but end up this action harming the global value of the company. The second framework is duty framework. It focuses on the rightness to perform correct actions rather than the consequences. This framework allows bad results from unethical issues, but failed to provide a clear guidance when there are conflicts in the two moral duties. For example, the misalignment in this case presents an ethical conflicts. In one side, IKEA has to respect the gender equality to align with its global CSR. Another side, the company has to respect the local cultural norms in each market. This framework doesn't tell which duty should take in priority. The third framework is mutual framework. The aim of this framework is to develop one's character. Decision-making is based on who people feel themselves to be and who they wish to be. However, they can have different views on mutuals, especially under different culture. This framework doesn't clearly guide the decision-making or provide specific route for actions where mutuals varies by culture. Since each framework has its limitation, to make an ethical decision, IKEA can start by identifying the ethical aspect of the issue between cultural respect and universal human rights. Then consider all affected party and gather relevant information. After that, evaluate the options based on the free ethical decision framework to guide the option towards responsible and moral outcomes. After the evaluation based on above steps, the most appropriate immediate action is guided by the duty framework, which emphasizes doing what is morally right regardless of the consequences. The management team should apologize for the ethical misalignment and publicly acknowledge that removing women from the Saudi Arabic catalog was inconsistent with its global values. This action helps the company demonstrating its commitments on upholding human rights and gender equality. It is the fundamental duties that should not be compromised, even when operating in cultural sensitive markets. However, we can see that similar cultural misalignment issues keep happening in IKEA, even after this conflict. Therefore, more comprehensive and long-term strategies are recommended to prioritize its ethical principles across its global operations. I will pass to Jalu to talk about this recommendation.
Today, I'd like to share the recommendations for how IKEA can manage the ethical complexities of operating in culturally conservative markets, such as Saudi Arabia, without compromising its global identity. And the heart of this strategy is what I call principled pragmatism. That means IKEA needs to balance its core values like gender equality and inclusivity with the realities of operating in local markets, where cultural expectations might challenge those values. It's about prioritizing long-term brand integrity and reputation, while still being active enough to adapt when necessary. Next, please. The first recommendation is to rethink advertising in conservative markets. Instead of removing women entirely from visuals, IKEA should focus on products and home environments. Let the furniture speak for itself and emphasize the beauty of the space, not the people in it. If people must appear, use subtle family scenarios that are culturally appropriate. This ensures the messaging feels relatable without crossing local norms. Also, it's critical to engage local experts early in the process. They can guide the creative direction and help ensure cultural sensitivity. Lastly, abstract imagery can be powerful. Concepts can be communicated effectively, even without showing human figures. This allows IKEA to uphold its design-driven style while still being respectful. Next, please. The second strategy is about transparency and education, both inside and outside the company. Internally, IKEA should clearly explain to its employees and stakeholders the challenges of globalization and how strategic adaptation doesn't mean giving up on core values. Externally, IKEA needs to proactively explain its marketing choices. Let the public know that these designs are intentional, thoughtful, and aimed at maintaining cultural relevance without losing ethical grounding. Also, we need to consider power distance in certain cultures. In high power distance societies, meaningful agreements may require engaging individuals with formal authority or recognized status. Next, please. Finally, beyond what's visible in advertisements, IKEA must walk the talk. That means concrete actions, such as investing in local communities to promote gender equality, especially through education and entrepreneurship for women. Supporting women's employment in real, definite with sends a powerful message. It shows that IKEA is committed to its values even in challenging environments. And all of this aligns perfectly with the UN Global Compact, which encourages businesses to strengthen society and promote gender equality as part of global sustainability efforts. In conclusion, by combining innovative communication strategies, internal transparency, and real community investment, IKEA can succeed in diverse markets without sacrificing its identity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jialo. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about some positive consequences. Let's begin by exploring the positive consequences of IKEA adopting the ethically consistent yet culturally sensitive marketing strategies. The very first one is to strengthen brand integrity and the global trust by aligning their strategies with the universal ethical principles like human rights and gender equality while remaining respectful to cultural nuances. IKEA enhance its global reputation. This is especially critical in conservative market where upholding their gender representation sends a strong message, as Donaldson's 1996 and the UN Global Compact 2015 suggests that this kind of ethical consistency builds trust, not only with the consumers but also with the employees, NGOs, and international partners. The second one is IKEA benefits from an improved corporate social responsibility or CSR image. According to Knowledge at Wharton 2012 report, companies that embed ethics in their core operation enjoy strong brand values. IKEA's decisions to respectfully includes women in its branding efforts, positions it as a progressive and responsible organization, one that adapts without compromising its values. And last not but the least, we have positive social influence through local community program like women's education and entrepreneurship. IKEA can demonstrate tangible social responsibility. This not only supports gender inclusivity but align with the Hofstede 2010 framework, which encourages ethical leadership while navigating cultural differences. Such initiatives have fostered long-term goodwill in the societies where IKEA operates. Now let's move on to the next slide, which is no negative consequences. Uh, the very first one is the risk of criticism from both the sides. IKEA might find itself caught between opposing expectations. Human rights group would argue that IKEA is not pushing hard enough for gender equalities. Meanwhile, traditional communities might view the inclusion of women in advertising as an affront to cultural norms, as mentioned by Mammoth 2012 and Rates 2015 reports. This tension could place IKEA in a difficult uh, ethical dilemma where neither side is fully satisfied. The second one is we encounter increased operational complexity, uh, tailoring marketing for different cultural contexts is resource incentive. It means hiring local consultant, crafting region specific campaign, and conducting regular cultural audit, as noted by Trompner and Bullions 2004. Now, last is the need for continuous adaptation. Cultural norms are not statistic. Academia World News 2023 report warned us that expectations, particularly in conservative societies, can shift rapidly. ICAM must remain agile and continuously revise its strategies to stay both culturally and relevant and ethically consistent. That kind of ongoing adaptation is not only demanding but requires a deep commitment and some foresights. Now let's move on to the very last slide, which is conclusion. The first one is ethically consistent is crucial for global brands to maintain credibility and long-term successes. Multinational companies must balance global values with local norms without compromising their core principles. Transparent communication and cultural sensitivity are critical tools for managing these balances. Global managers needs to demonstrate cultural intelligence and ethical leadership to navigate these complexities effectively. And for IKEA, this means promoting gender equality while respecting cultural diversity, ensuring that their actions are both responsible and resonate across different societies. In summary, IKEA has the potential to lead by example by showing that it is possible to be globally ethical and locally respectful at the same time. Thank you so much. Now we have some references. Next slide. And these are the references we use in this PPT. And thank you so much for your patience. Thank you.